So I always tell people, there's the process that you have to take in everything. This is the process right here. Once you've done this, you're a legitimate business. You are a real person functioning. You're a real business. Let's talk about business credit and how to utilize it to build a duplex or a fourplex. Now, one of the biggest things is you can go out there and you can utilize your own credit to go and develop and build stuff. And a lot of times when you first get started, you're going to have to be the guarantor of those loans. But ultimately, the goal is to be able to self-perform on a business line of credit that allows you freedom and flexibility from liabilities that would otherwise compromise you if the market happened to turn. Now, we always want to execute for the best case scenario, but we want to underwrite for the worst case scenario. And so I always tell people, make sure that you have an exit strategy no matter when you and how you buy a piece of real estate. But one of the biggest things is once you buy that piece of real estate and you know you have liability, because there's risk in everything that we do. There's risk waking up in the morning. There's risk getting in your car, turning on your car and driving down the street to the store. There's risk in everything that we do. So reducing that risk is how we want to perform all of the time. And so when we do that, it's great to be able to create a line of business credit where your business actually stands on its own 2 feet. So that way, if for some unforeseen reason, economics go against you, you hold your personal liability separate than your business, and your business stands on its own 2 feet. So if you have to flush a property, you have that ability to without the liability. Now, in the beginning, you're still going to hold that liability. You are going to be the personal guarantor to be able to help set up the business line of credit. But the sooner you do this, the sooner that line of credit will stand on its own 2 feet and be able to help you produce long-term wealth and take on the liability of these assets as you move forth. Now, with that said, how is it done? What do you do to go in and build business credit to be able to build a duplex? And if you haven't already watched the video about establishing business credit, I want you guys to go back. I'm going to recommend it at the end of this video. Watch how to establish business credit to be able to go out and do this. Now, I'm going to go through it in a nutshell so that you understand the pros, cons, and the how-tos of how to utilize it. Now, when you establish business credit, you're going to have to establish a business that's either S corporation, a C corporation, or an LLC, or a partnership if provided that you're doing it under a partnership. Now, when you go in, let's say that you use a simple limited liability corporation. You use an LLC, and let's call that LLC Build Houses for You. Okay, let's say that's the name of your company, LLC. Now, when we do this, we're going to take Build Houses for You, LLC, and we're going to register that with a Dun & Bradstreet, okay? Now, we're going to have to get that business an EIN number. That EIN number is an employer identification number. That is like the business's social security number. That is the number that you're going to utilize to be able to retain credit. So if you notice on applications, it'll say, are you applying for this credit for an individual or a business? Then it'll say, what type of business? Then you'll check mark the box that says LLC, and then it'll say, what is the social security number or EIN number? And I'll always say or. Even when you fill out a W-9 for tax purposes, and on that EIN number, you're going to put it in once you've registered it with the IRS. Then you're going to go out and get a regular business license, okay? So you're going to get a regular business license. Can't get a business license without an EIN number, guys. Now, we're going to go ahead and register that with like the Better Business Bureau, with a BBB. We're going to register it with a Dun & Bradstreet. And then we're going to go in and we're going to open up a bank account, okay? Banks love giving away credit cards. Not giving them away, but they love you applying for them. Why? Because banks are in the business of lending money. So wherever you go out and you do business, let's say you go down to Chase, for example, and you open up a bank account, theoretically speaking, down at Chase. If you go down to Chase, you get yourself a little travel card. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll get me a personal card, and then when I get a personal card with that bank, and then I fill out the application for a business line of credit, they ask if I have a business card with them as well, and I check yes. And so they don't guarantee it with that one unless they tell you they do, but you go in and you establish a bank account and you apply for a credit card. Okay, so you get a bank account, typically a checking, maybe a savings. They love that. And then we'll do like a money market. Now, most of the time, these accounts don't cost you anything. And if they do, it's very limited. But this helps you establish what I call a real business. You're not a fly-by-night no more. You're a real business. So you're not somebody that can just do business. And today you're in business, tomorrow you're out of business. You're registered with all of the entities and the federally backed agencies that you need to be a legitimate business, okay? And so now you go in and you get your debit card, and then you apply for a business credit card. Now, once you do this, you go out, you perform for just a few months. Go out and buy land, build a house, go get a construction loan from one of your local banks. Use these credit cards to go in and buy materials. Even if the credit card's only for $10,000, go buy your toilets at Home Depot with it. Go down and buy to your supply house and buy your sinks, your electrical fixtures. Go to your local lighting store, buy your lighting fixtures. Pay those off with your construction loan. So what you do is you go and use your credit card at supply houses to buy materials, and then you take your construction loan from your account, the bank, the draws they're giving you, you pay off the credit card. And what you're doing over the course of like 6 months is you're creating business lines of credit. So you go out, you build a house, you pay off that credit from your bank and your lender. You also pay your credit cards, which is also a line of credit from your credit card companies, and you're starting to establish credit. Now, what you end up doing after about 6 months, you buy a piece of land, you build a house, you make maybe $150,000 to $200,000, theoretically speaking, on a house, right? That's what our students are doing typically that are performing under our business model. Now, we take that after we do one, maybe the whole process is 12 months. 12 months later, you sit back and go, Jerome, I love building houses. I'm going to build 2 this year. But in addition to that, I want to build a duplex, or I want to build a fourplex, and I want to do it on my business line of credit. Well, if you haven't established any lines of credit as you've built your business, you're going to have a really tough time just going in and getting the line of credit for a duplex right out of the bat. So I always tell people, there's steps to everything. There's the process that you have to take in everything. This is the process right here. Once you've done this, you're a legitimate business. You have the bank accounts, you have the Dun & Bradstreet number, you have your Better Business Bureau reputation, you got your employer identification number, which is the business's social security number, essentially, and you got your business license, you got your bank accounts, you got your debit cards, your credit cards. You are a real person functioning. You're a real business, not a real person, but you're a real person with a real business functioning under your business name. Build Houses for You, LLC, okay? Now, we take all that, we go in, you go, Mr. Banker, I've just built a couple houses, I've have a line of credit. Can I go ahead and push this line of credit from $10,000 up to $50,000? And in addition, I'd like to go out and use a line of credit to go out and build a duplex. So what you'll end up doing is you get a set of plans, some similar to this, right? And so this one is 150 units, and so it's going to be a little smaller than this. But for all essential purposes, you're going to go through the process. And if you haven't seen the video of how to entitle property and get building permits and lending, I'm going to recommend that video at the end of this video as well. You'll want to watch that. It's a great video. It gives you the exact ins and outs of what the process of going in and getting lending and permits to be able to get money from banks and institutions. The same process that goes for a single family home is the exact same process you're going to need for 150 units or a duplex or a fourplex. You're going to have a set of prints. Now, typically they're electronic. I'm an old school contractor. I love paper prints because I can see it. They're tangible to me. I can sit back, peel these back, and I understand what I need to do to perform on the projects, what I have as far as my architecture. Now, the banks can take that in for an appraisal. You go into the banks and you want to get a construction loan on that, and you want to utilize and leverage your line of credit with a business line of credit to build that. You could do it one of two ways. You could go in, you could take the money that you made in your original builds, and now you could take your credit lines that you have established for your business, and you can get a line of credit to build a duplex, maybe a $1 million line of credit, because now you're an established business. You've been paying off your credit cards. And so you take that business line of credit and you go out and build a duplex. Or you could go in and you can get a construction loan, and which is also a line of credit for you to go in and build that duplex as well. So you can either do it one of two ways. You can go in and get a straight business line of credit. So it's non-collateralized, okay? So you can get a business line, and it's typically non-collateralized, meaning that it doesn't have anything to back it. Now, this takes a little bit of time to get, and you have to have a resume with the bank so that they know that you can self-perform and get that money back to them. They're just not going to give you $1 million. You have to give them affirmation that you are credit-worthy and capable, both things, credit-worthy and capable of being able to utilize that money as a business to grow. Now, you can go in and tell them, hey, I just want to be able to grow my business. So the reasons that you get a non-collateralized business line of credit is you want equipment. That's a great way to be able to get a business line of credit. Tell them I want equipment, or tell them I need a new office, so location. I need to build more units so we can scale. So we want to increase revenue. I want to be able to service payroll to grow. because a lot of times people want to grow, but they can't service the payroll to grow. So how do you grow? If you can't afford the payroll to grow, how do you grow? You could do it really slow and grow into your employees, or you can get a business line of credit to afford their payroll, but that person has to strategically be making you money. Like that person has to pay for their payroll and make the company money. If they're not doing those two things, then they're not worth having them as an employee. They have to pay for themselves. They earn their keep in your business. Does that make sense? So when you ever hear an employee go, I make these people millions of dollars and I'm going to go do it for myself. Okay, great. Go do it for yourself. Or that employee has to go in and make that company money. That's the goal of having employees. That's why you grow with employees, because the more employees you have, the more revenue the business should bring in based on the workload that those employees take on to bring revenue into the business. So another way that you utilize your business line of credit is you use it for employee growth. Okay, so you could take these. Now, if you go out and you build a duplex, aren't you doing this stuff anyways? Aren't you going out and you're having to buy a little bit of equipment? Aren't you going out and having to be able to utilize an office, whether it's a home office or a physical office, in order to do the paperwork? Aren't you going to have to hire employees, whether they're contract labor or they're W-2 employees? You're going to be onboarding and paying employees, right? Drywall guys, foundation people, roofers, all these people are going to be some sort of employee. They may not be a W-2 employee, they might be contract labor employees, but they're still an employee of some sort that you're going out and you're retaining and hiring to be able to build. So you could go in, get a business line of credit that potentially is non-collateralized and do it and self-perform under your line of credit. Or you can go in and get a business line of credit where the actual project itself is the collateralization of the actual money that's being done. Now, this one is usually what's called a revolving line of credit. Okay, this is revolving. Now, here's what I like about a revolving line of credit is that with a revolving line of credit, anytime I pay it off, I still have that line of credit. Okay, so if we go out and we do a construction loan, this typically is tied to an individual property. So with a construction loan, it's collateralized to a specific project. So that means that this right here, that construction loan is collateralized to this individual project. When this project is done and this project is stabilized, that construction money goes back and to the bank. And then when you have another project, you have to reapply every single time you have a new project. So you have to reapply each and every single time you're going to perform. Okay, that can slow down the process, and it can also be a pain when you're growing on small assets like single family homes, duplexes, fourplexes. So this is the way you're going to have to get started. Okay, but if you go through the process of getting your business registered, having a legitimate business, and creating your own business line of credit where you have established that business as its own entity with its own identity, that EIN number, and its own credit, you could go out and have a revolving line of credit. And so you could go out and build a duplex, and then when you're done building that duplex, you get a stabilized loan on that asset. You take the money from that stabilized loan, you pay off your line of credit, and immediately you go build another asset. That means you don't have to go out and show these prints to the bank. You don't have to go out every single time you have a project and reapply. This is a revolving line of credit. You utilize it, you pay it off, and it sits there with $1 million in it theoretically, where you go in and say, let's say I have $1 million line of credit. Well, you go in, you use that $1 million, you finish or complete a project, you pay that loan back off, that money still is available to you now that it's paid off. You can start your next project immediately, and you don't have to wait to go through the encumbrancy underwriting that most traditional construction loans and construction lending depend on. You go through underwriting one time. A lot of time for business lines of credit, in my experience, they are a lot less scrutinizing and a lot less work than going in even just for a construction loan. So 9 times out of 10, guys, I love having business line of credit. Now, I'm going to give you a little tip, and I talk about this in front of the room all the time. And I tell people, look, when you first sell a house, like let's say you come in and say, Jerome, I want to come into your inner community. I want to learn how to buy a piece of land and build a house. And I want to take down $150,000 to $200,000 process utilizing your system. And I sit back and tell you, are you sure you're willing to work for free for the next 12 to 13 months in order to make that $150,000 to $200,000? And I tell them, don't quit your job. Work your job, go in, pay your bills, keep living like you're living. You're going to walk to work with skipping at a different beat, because now you have something. You have a tool. You have a vehicle that's going to produce larger revenue than most people are working in a 9-to-5 job, working 5 to 10 hours a week. You manage your projects 10 hours a week, you're going to have a very well-managed, well-groomed, and finished project that you're proud of. And so I'll tell you that you go in, and 12 to 13 months later, you finish a project. Let's say you have $150,000 net proceeds after all in all is done. $150,000, instead of going out and buying a car, a stupid watch, or something that doesn't make you any money long term, you take that money and you collateralize it initially to establish a business line of credit, okay? Because initially that business can't stand on its own 2 feet. So if you take the build money and you go out and say, hey, Mr. Banker, I want to get a $1 million line of credit. And they're going to say, okay, well, let's see your financials. And say, I don't mind collateralizing $150,000 into that line of credit. And what they're going to do is they're not actually going to collateralize it. What they're going to utilize it for is they're going to put it into what's called an interest reserve account. And so they'll take that $150,000. And this is the way the bank looks at that $150,000. Let's say that you get a $1 million line of credit, okay? And let's multiply that times, let's say that line of credit typically is a little bit more expensive than traditional money. Let's say it's at 9%, so times 0.09, okay? So that's $90,000 a year divided by 12, okay? That's $7,500 a month. So if you have $150,000 divided by $7,500, so $150,000 divided by $7,500, that's 20 months that the bank has interest payments that they can get from you. So they'll look at the business, they'll look at your financials, they'll see how much money that business is bringing in. If you've sold 2 houses and that business is bringing in $300,000 a year, multiply that times 2, they know they have 40 months. Now, if they take $150,000 as interest reserve, they know they have a reserve account that can service the debt on that property for at least 20 months. That gives them 20 months worth of security, and the insurance at your business can stand on its own 2 feet. And now they have that money to be able to back that loan. Now, if in that 20 months you can self-perform and show them that you're a stand-up citizen, you're paying off your debt, you're responsible with that debt as a business, and that business can stand on its own 2 feet, now you can go back and you can get your interest reserve money back. We do this with large apartment builds where we go in and say, okay, we're going to show you that we can perform. We can get 30% leased up and we're going to get 1/3 of our money back. Then we're going to get to 65% leased up and we're going to take another 1/3 of our money back. Then we're going to get to 95% leased up and we're going to get the rest of our interest reserve money back. And now that property stands on its own 2 feet. A line of credit to do this is the exact same thing. So you go in, you collateralize a simple build against it. Now, you could probably go in and get a $100,000, $200,000 line of credit without any money put up against that line of credit to collateralize it. I'm just showing you guys how to grow that line of credit quickly and then get your money back. Now, you self-perform for 1 year and you'll go back to the banks 12 months later and say, hey, Mr. Banker, we've been self-performing. We've been utilizing our line of credit. We've been paying it off every single month or every single project. We're current on our bills. We'd like to see if we can get our collateralized money back, the interest reserve, and get that back and still keep our line of credit. And they might sit back and say, well, we'll give you 50% back or we'll give you 100% back. But now you have either a $1 million line of credit that's non-collateralized, fully non-secured, that it stands on its own 2 feet. Now you can do revolving duplexes with that $1 million line of credit. And then you do one duplex, you pay it off, and you go back to the bank and say, Mr. Banker, this $1 million has been grateful to us, but can we increase this to $2 million? The bank looks at your finances, they look at it and they say, well, you know what, we don't want to take that big of a risk, but we'll up it to $1.5 million. Then you go in and you self-perform, you do a fourplex, and you self-perform, you're still building a couple houses, you're paying off your line of credit, you're utilizing it responsibly, and now you go in and another 6 months, 9 months, 12 months later, you go in, Mr. Banker, a year ago, I asked you for an extra $1 million. Thank you so much. You gave me $500,000 additional money towards my line of credit, but I want to ask you for that additional $500,000 again today so we could take that up to a $2 million non-collateralized line of credit. And then your banker looks at your financials. They look that you've been responsible. They look that you've been paying it off, that you've been buying land and building houses, 1 or 2 a year. You're going in, you're building duplexes, fourplexes, and you're growing, and you're responsible with your money. Your company and your financials have continued to grow as well. And they sit back and say, not only will we give you $2 million, but now we'll give you up to $3 million on your line of credit. Now the bank wants you to take their money because they sit back and year number 2, year number 3, they're sitting back going, why wouldn't we give this person money? We gave them the process. They worked through the process. They paid responsibly through the process. They've grown the way a healthy business is supposed to grow. They know that you're responsible. Now they want to give you money. It's not about proving to them whether you can perform. Now it's about them having a responsible, reliable client that knows that how to utilize their money and pay them back. Now they want you as a customer. They want you as a client. They want their money in your pocket because their money in your pocket makes the bank money, because the bank is in business of lending money. If they're not lending money, they're not making money. They want to put their money in good investments, and good investments are good people that have sweat equity in businesses that can grow. And so once they understand that you have a good business where you've invested your sweat equity in growing the foundation of your business, in 2-3 short years, you can have a non-collateralized, maybe $3 million line of credit where you can go in and you don't even have to get prints like this anymore. You can just use your revolving line of credit to be able to grow. Now, as those assets grow, there is a caveat to that. We don't have a business line of credit to go out and build a $50 million development. We still have to go in and get construction lending on the big assets. But the cash flow items, like us building houses, we build them cash. And when you have a line of credit, you're still building them cash. You're not going out and getting a construction loan. It's not your cash, it's the bank's cash, but it's still cash that you're utilizing to build those homes. Now, as you do that, you're just building your portfolio. Some of that might be your money, but a lot of it's going to be that line of credit. If you go in, you have 5 years into it, you go in back to Mr. Banker, you say, hey, I'm doing 6 homes a year. I have a 10-unit apartment complex going up. We have cash flow. We're keeping these assets. My revenue's growing. Can I get a $5 million line of credit? And now all of a sudden, your line of credit starts to grow and your business grows. And so your non-collateralized line of credit continues to get larger and is still revolving. Ladies and gentlemen, these are simple steps on not only how to build a duplex, but a fourplex, and to scale from single family to multifamily and large institutional investment assets that you can retire on and have passive income on forever. The best way to grow is by utilizing asset protection, setting up your business as a separate entity, creating its own identity, utilizing its EIN number and its own business registration so that it sits back. It takes away the personal liability by taking on that collateralization under the business, allowing you to grow independent of yourself and giving that business its own platform to thrive on. Look, ladies and gentlemen, for more content just like this, click and subscribe to our YouTube channel, pound that thumbs up button, and continue following for more incredible content on how to grow your business in real estate and finances and go out there and compound your success.